Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show, or welcome back for any return guests. Today, we're going to be talking about breath. So, yeah,
Hmm,
take it away, Aaron.
you don't say.
The breath master.
How's how's your breathing today? I just had a
Um,
big ass burrito, so I feel like with a super hot salsa, a little bit
do,
constricted back
do
there.
you catch yourself when you eat? Do you catch yourself like inhaling your food, or are you making sure to chew a bunch of times and take deep breaths in between your bites? Or are you somewhere in between?
Man, I am the slowest eater of
Yeah.
everyone. I take my time with the
Okay.
food, man. And I don't typically like to have a conversation, with food. Like,
Yeah.
why do I want to add stress? And we can talk about that in a minute. Like, adding stress with like mouth breathing as I'm eating. I just, one, that's going to be noisy and irritating, and food is flying out of them, out of the mouth. But so like there's an etiquette around it, but it's also a physiological thing.
All right.
Taking your time to eat, man, helps digestion with life. Imagine going around like panting everywhere. Just
I
try
mean,
that.
that's how most people walk around and are actually breathing, right? Like the way that we're like, if you watch a baby breathe, like that's the way that we're meant to breathe, right? Like you see their stomach rise, and like when they're sleeping, like deep into the stomach and into the lungs, and like that's the way that we're supposed to be breathing properly. Like how many people walk this earth and like never take a
This is
deep
this is
breath?
wild. I mean, just the mention of breath. I think about jiva atma is the Vedic term for a soul that's embodied here on this earth, and the Sanskrit term, and if effectively means air breathing atma, or an atomic energy is wrapped up in physical matter that's required to breathe air. That's the first requirement. It's the first thing we do when we come into this world outside of our mother's womb, and the last thing we do when we
Your
leave.
last breath,
And
right? Yeah.
and then we're 24 ounces lighter or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Where does that taking a ride on the breath?
It's 21 grams, right? Is it 21 grams? Like, so people say that that's like the weight of your soul, if you will, or whatever.
Mm,
Because when everyone dies, immediately 21 grams leaves their body.
right. It's
I
interesting,
think it's
isn't it?
I think it's 21 grams.
Well,
Anyway,
let's take a look at some stats for
all right,
breath. Let's
okay.
let's take a look at the average American at rest is taking somewhere around 15 to 20 breaths per minute. That's in deep sleep. Now, that would be for a healthy adult. Sorry, there's an average rate for a healthy adult. And how do we gauge health? Well, overweight or obese, if you're having a weight issue, your breath is actually going to be the rate of your breath is going to increase. And we can talk about that, what that means in a moment. There's a demand on this is increased demand on the system and a loss of efficiency if for people who are overweight or really dealing with a serious weight issue and into the category of obesity. There are several other factors that affect that: age, your activity level, health conditions. If you're, if you just click the timer and you watch your breath and you can count on your hands or mark on a pencil your resting rate, if you're consistently above 25 breaths per minute, that's an issue. That could be an issue if you're not on a bike or something. If your resting rate is consistently below, say, 10 breaths, it may mean there's an issue. It also might mean you're someone like you or I who's doing breath work almost every single day. And we'll talk about what breath work is and all this stuff. This is going to be a wide ranging conversation, but let's see if we can nail it down short for everyone who's listening or watching. So the common concerns of breathing have to do with the rate of breathing, and then also what's happening in the body and the blood, and the hole at which the oxygen is coming in. This is a critical role. And we can start there if you want about Like nose or mouth? What's that about?
Well, I do know that, like as an athlete, right? Like I know that your body absorbs like what? I think it's 20% more oxygen when you breathe through your nostrils, right? So even though you don't feel like you're getting as much air, your body's actually more efficient. Your body's absorbing it. Now, there comes a point when you're needing to get so much air if you're really vigorously exercising that you're not capable, in my experience, of actually getting it through your nose. I also have one of my nasal passages that's basically completely 100% blocked. So when I am breathing through my nose, I'm only getting 50% of the flow that I need. So as far as like
Mm,
athletic performance goes, like I can't if I'm running like a long distance or something like that, or like I'm vigorously exercising or playing basketball or whatever it may be, right? When I need to get oxygen, I need to breathe through my mouth. Maybe it would
mm.
be different for me if both of my nasal passages were completely clear and I was properly breathing through my nose, but, as breathing and the science of breath, if you will, has come into my field over the last, let's say, 10 years, I'm much more conscious about breathing through my nose, taking deep breaths into my belly, making sure that it's a slow breath. And there's physiological effects for that too, just when you're resting, right?
Yeah, you mentioned that's a good point. I mean, look, if I'm on a bike ride and I'm sucking wind and my heart is raging at 220 beats a minute, I'm probably gonna be breathing through my mouth. Sometimes the nose just collapses down. You need to get it in and get it out. Is breathing through the nose more efficient? 100%. You just mentioned more oxygenating. It's also more hydrating. If you breathe through the mouth,
Mm.
you're dehydrating your system. Breathing through the nose is 40% more hydrating. You capture water molecules. I mean, this is why drug use is really popular. It's shove it up the nose. It goes right into the bloodstream. But we have uh, around 40% more hydrating than when compared to mouth breathing. That's another benefit. It also affects your veins, your cardiovascular system's ability to dilate, to get bigger, to move more blood and oxygen through the system. So if you're
Mm.
breathing through the mouth, the aperture starts to close down, especially starting with the fingertips, the capillaries, and then so you can preserve energy of your internal organs in your brain. And breathing through the nose tends to open and relax the tissues of the body, the cardiovascular tissues of the body, so that blood
Okay.
flows more rapidly and readily to the extremities. It's more relaxing. And you think about like how do we express emotions? Do you ever express emotions through your nose?
Mm.
When was the last time you laughed just with your nose? Hopefully you weren't drinking a glass of milk or something, right? Like it goes out your nose. Or crying. You cry with your mouth shut? Do you express fear or anger or surprise? No, it's with your mouth, right?
I
Ah,
guess the only thing I can think of as far as expressing is like if you're like, like that emoji that where you're blowing
yeah,
out the nose, kind of like, that's the only thing that
yeah,
I can
tight-lipped.
like,
You
yeah, like,
go,
that's the only thing I can think of.
yeah. Typically, if you were to watch a video of somebody's like just watch videos of that, it's only for a moment, really, and then the full
Yeah.
expression of the emotion is coming through the mouth. So excessive mouth breathing represents a dysfunctional breathing pattern that requires monitoring and adjustment if you're doing it, because this type of breathing, it dysregulates the nervous system. It dehydrates the body and it increases your risk of sleep disorders. And especially if you want to get into breath work, you want to change, get into the mystical and alter your consciousness and see all like lights and sounds or portal off into another dimension. There's breathwork modalities for that. I can guarantee you it's an open mouth, inhale, emphasis, breath. And you can look at, there's all kinds of stuff. James Nestor's book, Breathe, is a pretty good book. I like that a lot. I really like the storytelling throughout. Patrick McCown's Oxygen Advantage is a super, super great, thick, more scientific, quantitative based, breath work. book, especially for athletes. And there's so many dynamics in breath work, but why don't we talk about mostly like the I call it the four frames of breath. There's really only four categories of breathing. And I think we can simplify this whole thing. So can you guess what one category might be? We're kind of touching on it with the nose and the mouth thing.
4 categories of breath? I
Yeah.
mean, is the inhale and the exhale, are those 2 categories?
There we go. Inhale specific or inhale
Right.
emphasis, and boom, exhale emphasis or exhale specific.
Okay.
Then there's two more. If you can guess what they are. Oh, if you need a spoiler, I'll give it to you.
I mean, is it a variant of inhaling or exhaling? Because you can go through the nose or through the mouth and
Yeah,
out
you're on the
through the
right
nose,
track.
out through the mouth, right?
So the other one would be equal emphasis, just continuous, conscious, connected breath, maintaining full awareness, but and this is regardless of whether you're using an inhale emphasis breathing pattern or an exhale emphasis breathing pattern or an even one. You can still use the nose and the mouth, but we haven't covered number 4 yet, which is one of my favorite special categories, and that is performance based breath work or performance optimizing breath. And these are techniques that mostly were developed for athletes. But what I found is we can bring in stuff like situations around our life or stuff that triggers us and bring them into performance based breathing where we can enhance our physical performance or our mental performance if we weren't breathing specifically for those outcomes. So we can create kind of like unlock little superpowers and also
Mm,
decharge emotional stress from maybe it was a broken relationship or just something that's been really stressing you out or pissing you off.
mhm.
And we can cover what those are too. And in all of these categories, it's really, I give a user's choice every time I do a breathwork session with somebody. The nose is like the brake pedal, right? It slows intensity down. And the mouth is like the gas pedal. That's where I'm really getting charged up. And maybe we'll get claw hands. Even in different in equal emphasis or exhale emphasis, different responses can happen to different people. But some we just want to breathe through the nose to keep it light. But if we really want to get active or alter our consciousness, we'll be breathing through the mouth. So those would be the
Yeah.
four categories of it. So we talked a bit about the nose. We covered a little bit about the mouth. We've got the four categories of breath. Is there any category that you're super interested in or that you've noticed like really had a lasting effect or an altering effect that was just interesting for you? And you're like, oh, I want to do that again.
So as far as, when you mentioned kind of, the altering effects, I've done a number of different types of breath work that modify mood and or have some kind of psychedelic effect, right? Like I had a friend who years ago showed me this type of breathing where like you can basically like force a DMT hit,
Oh yeah.
which DMT, as we know, dimethyltryptamine, it's secreted in the brain when we're born, when we die, and when we dream, right? And that's also finely related to your ayahuasca medicine journeys, which many people know about these, incredible psychedelic journeys where they basically travel out of their bodies and like experience God or something or other, right?
There we go.
There's that one. I think in the beginning of my Wim Hof journey or Wim Hof, my breathwork journey, I did a bunch of Wim Hof stuff, and was really kind of taken aback at how long I could actually hold my breath and how there was actually a mental blockage. It wasn't a physical blockage, right? Like I very quickly, within a week of starting Wim Hof, I was able to hold my breath for 3.5 minutes, right? And at like
Go along.
40 to 60 seconds, your body's like, I need air. Right? And like if you can just calm that voice down in your mind, you can go 3, 4, 5 times longer than that, right? In my experience, I found. And then as a baseball coach, and I coach 11, 12, 13-year-old kids right now. And so they're in this, boys, they're in this place where they're trying to balance their emotions. There's a lot of crying going on in the baseball and the practice field, and kids are very upset. This is something that's very meaningful to them, and they get upset and they don't know how to regulate their emotions, right? So I
Yep.
help them regulate their emotions. Yeah.
Breathing through the
And
mouth,
yeah.
shouting.
always a shallow breath, right? And I just
Mm.
go over and I'll put my hand on their chest and I'm like, breathe, like deep breath, breathe. And then there's a specific exercise, I believe that Huberman actually talks about it, where it's a deep inhale through the nose. You fill up, you start down at the belly and you slowly move up and you fill the lower belly and the upper belly and the solar plexus, the lower lungs and the upper lungs. And then when you think you're full, you
Mm.
pause. And then at the very top, you take a sharp inhale and top it off, and then an audible exhale, calm the nervous system, right? And before you know
Yes.
it, these kids who are unraveling and are inconsolable and they're crying and they're so freaking upset, they've just calmed and they're just there in front of me now and they're no longer, like freaking out
Just
anymore.
dysregulated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like I wish that I got very overwhelmed with my emotions when I was a child. And my parents tried everything with me, the count to 10, the walk away, the deep breaths, the blah, blah, blah. I wish that I knew the science behind the breath and how it actually calmed you because, bro, did I need that specific exercise right there? Because I would flip out and I would do things that I knew that I shouldn't do, right? That I was taught not to do because I was so overwhelmed with emotion. I would just react and I would punch something or I would throw someone or throw something at somebody or
Punch someone.
I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes people that it's not okay to be punching, or pushing or doing whatever it was that I was doing, just because I was just this ball of emotion and I didn't know how to manage it, right?
Yeah, it's interesting distinction too, because what you mentioned, that's the physiological sigh. I think that's so cool that you're teaching teenagers
Almost
with
teenagers.
breath.
There's a
Right, right,
couple
almost
13
teenagers.
year olds, but yeah, yeah, yeah.
These techniques, they just work. They're
Yeah.
so and this one's a little counterintuitive also because it seems like it might be an inhale emphasis breath pattern, when in reality it's an exhale emphasis breathing pattern. But
The audible sigh, right?
there is some emphasis on the inhale in that you have to be responsible for the rhythm of the inhales.
It makes you conscious of it instead of just unconsciously hyperventilating in emotion. You have to actually focus on that, and it slows down your breath, which
Yeah.
is also
Yeah.
scientifically proven to calm the nervous system. Just that alone, and then that what you call the physiological sigh, right? It actually mellows you down even more, and it brings you down to a place where you can begin to. You've now just self-regulated in one breath in 15 seconds, maybe, right?
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It might not, you know, it might not empower you with the tools to remove patterns in the brain caused by developmental trauma or situations which have really stressed you out. You just can't stop thinking about them. But it will give you clearance in the moment for sure. If you're feeling dysregulated, that physiological sigh, as it were, is one of the core methods that I teach anybody who's ever interested in getting anywhere with breath. It's a really powerful example. There's also something called the Bolt score. It's not the best thing ever, but I still like to use it because it can give us a measure of how stressed we are. And so
Mhm.
if you, whether you're a weekend warrior and you're lifting weights, or maybe you just are stressed out, you live a stressful life and you haven't really gotten into like managing your body through fitness or exercise, or even if you are a professional athlete, the Bolt score can give you an idea of whether or not, if you're second guessing yourself, if you're just on autopilot and there's a heavy training day coming up, you can do this test where you just take a breath in. It's a natural breath, and you exhale, regular exhale, and you stop. And I have people pinch their nose, and you just hit the timer. As soon as you exhale, hit the timer, and you wait until that first real urge to breathe comes, and you stop the timer. And that gives you an idea of your relative breathing volume during rest and breathlessness during physical exercise. So the lower the Bolt score, the more breathlessness you will experience
Right.
during exercise. So you might not have a very efficient. It doesn't mean don't work out at all, but it might give you an idea of how taxed your immune system is as well. So maybe on days where you notice your breath is a little tight, And before, like, an hour before you work out, check. Just take a breath. It takes less than a minute. Hit the timer and check. If it's around 40 seconds, that's fine. That's a good score for a healthy person, and go to town. But if you want to establish your baseline, so do 3 or 4 or 5 at first, and then take your average, and that could be your average. You can just test over time and see what works for you. If if your bolt score is 20 or something, you got problems. Don't push it. But if your bolt score, if you're crushing your average, you're ready to go get a PR generally,
Mhm. Mhm. Right.
achieve a higher VO2 max too. So these are getting into performance breathing methods. To tolerance training, we can take the bolt score into an exercise now, where it then becomes CO2 tolerance training. This is rad because it enhances capacity to endure imbalances like stressful events. And this is like vitality in any endeavor, particularly if you are an athlete and you want to achieve more and also make clearer decisions. And how we do that is you can just breathe in, exhale, hold your breath, and go for a walk. Try 30 steps slowly. And then when you end the walk, you release your nose, relax for a second, take a deep breath in through the nose and relax, and then go walking again. And this time, this you say if you started with 30 steps, you want to try for 32 or 35 and see what your limit is. We really have to force that breath before you collapse. You never want to collapse at the end of the walk, but that's a really cool way also to sort of unlock superpowers. There's brain chemistry starts to change. That BDNF, it's brain derived nootropic factor, super essential for health and mood regulation, stress resilience, and CO2 tolerance, which is, many studies suggest that if you improve your CO2 tolerance, you can reduce your anxiety symptoms, lower your overall stress levels, enhance just calm functioning and clear decision making, as well as just strengthens the nervous system. So you can get a little bit more cooler under fire. That's a pretty badass breathing method on its own. And we haven't
Is
even
that
gotten into the other ones yet.
yeah, is that I think that you sent me, or did I send you something on Instagram recently, a reel about a dude. I think you sent it to me, a dude who's like basically holds his breath when he's weight training, and at 30 seconds, does that have to do with the CO2 tolerance? At 30 seconds, something happens. I don't remember if he said that like your body
Hmm.
begins pushing out stem cells or it's HGH or something like that. But I tried that in the gym. It's incredibly difficult when you're I mean, maybe that guy doesn't work out as hard as I do, but when you're really physically exerting yourself and you're trying to, you know, get on the bench, lay down, and try and push out some decent weight and hold your breath while you're doing it. Like, because when you're doing physical exercise like that, your body just soaks up the oxygen, right? Because the oxygen is the fuel that helps to bring the oxygen to the muscles, and that's what you need. That's what your muscles need to continue going, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that for anybody who's just starting out or anybody who is overweight or doesn't have a history
Right.
of being athletic or so. I would never suggest anything like that.
Okay.
A method like that could increase your oxygen efficiency. It
Yeah.
could help improve CO2 tolerance by intentionally raising carbon dioxide in the body. I just gave it a Google while you're explaining it, and it looks like it's known as the Valsalva maneuver,
Okay.
according to Google. But
Okay.
again, it says the same thing that I just mentioned.
Right.
It says, yeah, however, this
Well,
technique carries weight.
I'm working out a long time. I'm active hours of the day, so I guess it's safe for me to try it. But for anybody who's not in that place, like
I think there's a better
don't
one.
risk it.
So
Okay.
for me, if you're weight training, you're already adding stress to your body.
Right.
It's a good
Right.
stress, but it's stressful mentally and physiologically. It
Right.
stresses your brain to push heavy weight. It stresses your body to tear the muscle, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
To damage the muscle and come back stronger. So I'm not trying to add stress. So that's a method like that. I would guess could probably fuck with your sleep too. And I'm not trying
Mm.
to mess
Mm.
with my sleep. I'm trying to make my weight training sessions as efficient and as relaxing as possible so that I can burn more fat, my metabolism stays high, and I can retain more muscle. So cool, good on the guy for exploring the breath method. Try anything you want. We're gonna put a disclaimer on this on this episode. We're not doctors or get medical advice.
Right, 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 right.
Start the friggin' exercise.
Well, you know me, I just like to try all the things, you know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let's try that on for size and see how it fits, Like,
I
that's difficult.
I love that approach, and so I'm going to offer this to you and everyone else listening. And this is what I learned from Jersey and Aniela Gregorick. They have a system called the Happy Body. These are two Olympic world champions in Olympic weightlifting, multi-time gold medalists, world record holders. I think they have 10 or 12 world records between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimate badasses, and they're also poets, stoics, philosophers, psychotherapists in a way. Like they really understand the human situation very, very well. And so what they have done when they train an athlete, when they build an athlete, they also modify the breath pattern, but it's a breathing pattern that has a temporary breath hold during the lifting phase and return phase, and then the total relax and exhale after every single lift in the system. There's 3 series of lifting, and there's 6 lifts and or 6 exercises and lifts during each sequence. And the breathing pattern is inhaling. You perform the lift while the breath is retained. There's a stretch of the joint, so you get improved mobility. In every single lift, you return the lift to its original position, and then you exhale. And what they found is that this breathing pattern, lift, stretch, return, exhale. Inhale, lift, stretch, return, exhale. Inhale, hold, lift, stretch, return, exhale. It creates this rhythm. Whoop. Inhale, move, exhale. Inhale, under tension, exhale, relax. And what they found is that it really accesses the parasympathetic nervous system. So lifting becomes like this meditation where I'm losing track of time. And people who practice this report this all over the place, is that the consciousness expands while they're lifting. And so you can imagine that a super relaxed fighter in the ring, if you put a guy in there super freaking tense, the guy who's intense is going to get burned out quicker, right? He's probably going to get his ass kicked. If the guy's super relaxed,
The
see
parasympathetic
action,
nervous
right?
system is known for recovery, right? Like I have a breathing exercise I do on the way home from the gym, or sometimes I'll lay down and do it right away on the mat at the gym that is designed to kick in your parasympathetic nervous system, which is basically the number one thing to help in your recovery. Like you can take all these
That's
supplements
right.
and do all of these things, but at the end of the day, just fucking lay down and rest and breathe properly. That's the number one thing that you can do for your recovery. So if you're recovering while you're working out, huh?
Recovering while you're working out 1,000,000%. And guess what? After you lift, 5 minutes of shavasana. Here's the trick that they do. They use
Yeah.
lavender scent, either lavender essential oil, or I use a room spray. I just
Hmm.
give a couple drops of essential oil,
Hmm.
some water, and I use one of
Yeah.
those little things. I get it like Trader Joe's or something. It's a little hand sanitizer. I use those sprays. They work great. Little mister.
Yeah.
And the same piece of music, a very relaxing piece of music, and during 5 minutes of just
Yeah.
laying down in
Yep.
shavasana, laying on your back.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the gym, you can use an eye cover or your
I put on some Om chanting at 432 hertz, and then I Om chant at the breath hold, the exhale, and the inhale at 5, 5, 5, and 5. Right?
this is Pavlovian. If you ever heard that Pavlov's dog thing, where they ring a
Yeah.
bell and they
Yeah.
feed the
Yeah.
dog,
Yeah.
they ring
Yeah.
the bell to feed the dog. Then they ring the
Yeah.
bell, they don't feed the dog, but the dog
They
still
start
keeps ringing.
salivating. Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got this relaxation protocol, this meditative protocol that's improving your strength, mobility, leanness, strength, and power as you lift. And at the end, you have a somatic trigger. You have a Pavlovian, a mental and emotional trigger that triggers relaxation. So if you go walking around the world and suddenly I smell lavender, or if I hear this certain piece of classical music, I am in my state of joy because I hear it almost every single day.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, Jersey, I don't do it every day, but almost every single day,
Yeah.
I listen to this music, I use the lavender, and my nervous system is generally pretty relaxed.
Yeah.
Today was something else, man. I gotta tell you, it took me an hour and a half this morning just to like de-stress my system. Something just came up this
Yeah.
morning that really set me off, but just went into my practice, used my tools, and then returned to functioning. And that's what breath can do, right?
Right.
Hmm. So what else do we want to talk about? I mean, this is such a huge conversation. We could talk for
We could
days
talk
about
about
breath, and
breath
we
for hours
probably
and hours.
will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's, if you're interested in learning more, you just join the school group. We can put a link in here somewhere. And there's a whole module that covers every single category of breath. And there's breath journeys under every single category to give anyone who comes in to the community an opportunity to experience and their own categories of breath, the way that their body responds to them, and they build their own breathwork program for whatever is
Right.
going on in their life. So
Right.
it'll give you an idea of what each one really does to their body and to their brain and in their life. And then they can build in with whatever they have going on. If they need more relaxation, if your levels are off the charts and you haven't been sleeping, well, use the certain breath methods that are in the community to glide you into sleep, to reduce your stress, and you use them again and again and again. And then additionally, there's another level where you can join one of our cohorts where we work with brain training and nervous system rerouting to permanently uh, and quickly change the belief structure that might be actually creating the stress in your life in the first place. So we deal more with the underlying causes. Breath is a great way to create some results. In my experience, though, I don't have another 7 or 10 years to keep using breath as the way to manage what's going on in my life. I would rather remove the program in my brain that's creating the problems in the first place. So I experience problems less and less and less, and I experience more harmony and love in my life. So that's what we do in the cohort. But if you get in the community, you can experience what, in my view, is one of the most comprehensive breath trainings available in the world right now. It covers so much, and you can spend all the time you want in there. And we're in there to guide you as well. We've got the weekly calls and
Yeah.
stuff.
100%. Yeah. Um, Great talk today on breath. I don't know that it went exactly the way that we thought it was going to go or had planned, but I like what we dove into there. And yeah, all of the links that you need will be in the show notes. So click on that stuff. Come see us, everybody. Take
Yeah,
care.
I'd also say if anybody's kind of like on the fence, or if any of this resonated with you at all and you want to know more, just do the like and subscribe thing and tell us more about what you want to hear. Join the community. Also, I
Yeah.
mean, that's where the action is taking place. We're doing this every day with guys to help them break through limitations with work and with women and the world and the sense of purpose and power. Let's remove the stress. Let's find out what that stress is and make the change. A lot of us are just being controlled by our environment. And that's what's amazing about breath work and the other things that we're doing in the community, is that our attention is the most valuable thing on the planet. If I'm being controlled by the environment, then I'm not creating my reality. I'm just responding and reacting to everything that's going on. That pisses me off really quick. And like I myself, we just had a conversation about this today. Let's change the dial. At least get a slice of every single day when we're in creation. And if you want to find out what's in the way, then this is the place to do it. Now's the time. There's no time like the present. So get in here, like, subscribe, join the community, and let us know what you want to hear more of. So we're here for it.
Well said, brother. And we will catch you next time. Peace.